We have our moment for the Devar Torah, some words, an address, and then we finish our service with Hashivenu together, Hashivenu rather. So if we're sitting comfortably on your sofas, at your kitchen tables, wherever you are. On a rainy day for our staycation in Yorkshire in August, instead of sunny Greece, we found ourselves in a car park testing ourselves for the coronavirus. Our 8-year-old son, following a light cold, was coughing. Nothing unusual for him because he's prone to an asthmatic type cough, but nonetheless, following medical advice, we all found ourselves with test kits in hand. I had, for some reason, imagined that a skilled nurse would help administer the test to my son. But of course, in these times of physical disconnection, we were left in the car with the kits and some really lovely people explaining through closed windows what we needed to do. They suggested me and my husband went first to show our son what was involved, swabbing our tonsils and up our noses. Well, that didn't work, and our son was not sold on the test, having seen it take place in front of him. He began crying, screaming, and quite naturally refusing to do the test. In my desperation, I remembered a book I'd just finished reading, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. In that book, she repeats the mantra, "We can do hard things." I said to our son, "I know this is hard." I didn't want to pretend that this would be easy, that it was okay. He could clearly see it wasn't a pleasant test. "I know this is hard, but we can do hard things. You've done hard things before, staying in during lockdown, when you had to go to hospital last year, and so on and so on. And you can do this." And it worked. He let me, with tears rolling down his face, do the test. And the next day we were all, thank God, found to be negative. We can do hard things. Whilst children may not have as much experience or perspective in knowing we can get through tough times, they just don't have the bank of experiences we build over time. I also need reminding time and time again that I can get through, that it will pass. I can do hard things. We can do hard things. And given everything we have gone through, everything we are going through, and everything that is to come, this mantra is vital. We're now in another phase of the COVID-19 crisis. At the beginning, everything was new. We were collectively in a moment where our adrenaline ran high. We acted on survival mode, taking one day at a time, not able to think about the bigger picture. Like deer in headlights, we focused on self-preservation. Do we have enough food? Can we book an online delivery slot? How does Zoom work? Should we be buying toilet rolls? Our sleep patterns were disrupted. We worked out how to care safely for our elderly relatives, how to support our newborn grandchildren from afar, how to homeschool, how to cope with living alone. We had to adapt overnight and upskill and learn at a terrifying rate. There was no chance for reflection. Then as things started to ease, we had to recover. We gently and carefully went out for meals, possibly went back to work, or were left working out what to do next as our careers had taken a hit, our finances decimated, our health affected. Our children went back to school. We went on holiday, albeit not where we'd originally planned. And then more strict restrictions in Greater Manchester and now England pull us back indoor and alone once again. I don't know about you, but this time feels harder. No longer running on adrenaline, the newness of the situation has worn off. We realise that we are in this for the long term. Brené Brown, the American professor and author, talks about the day two syndrome, be it day two of a new job, going back to school, etc. It's when the newness has gone and the stickiness, the reality hits us. We are in day two. Things will be hard. Winter is coming and we're waiting for a vaccine and we don't have an end date. Just like the Israelites who struggled in their wilderness journey after being freed from slavery, we struggle in these times of uncertainty. They roamed the desert with no end date, just a promise of redemption. But unlike us, they didn't have the benefits of online shopping. But instead of being full of gratitude, being thankful for freedom and the promise of what awaits, the Israelites moaned and groaned their way through the wilderness period. Rather that we would have died in Egypt than be out in this God-forsaken place. At least we had food we liked and we knew. They were fearful and kept distrusting God and Moses' promise. They built idols, rebelled and moaned. So much so that the generation of the enslaved Israelites would not be the ones who would enter the promised land. It would be their children. So enslaved were they to their slavery, so distrusting of the uncertainty that the world offered them, outside of the binary understanding of slavery, slave and owner, they were lost. Because embracing the reality that all is uncertain, fragile and temporary, as we do today, is terrifying. At a silent retreat a couple of years ago, I heard the teacher share an analogy about letting go, about accepting the uncertainty of life. He said it's like jumping out of a plane. The bad news is you don't have a parachute. The good news is there's no ground. You just free fall. This teaching marked a moment of insight for me. Whilst recognizing that life is hard and uncertain is terrifying, it can also be freeing. Over these high holy days, we are gifted the chance to take a breath, step back and reflect. We can use this time to heal, to make amends, and also to recognize and name how hard it has been and how uncertain everything is. Our liturgy tells us all is frail like grass. Our texts know life is hard. Our tradition hears us and holds us. And of course, the festival itself is hard, reflecting our reality. We fast, practice forgiveness and teshuvah, confess our mistakes and pray all day. In one of my favourite versions, alternative versions of the confession prayer Al-Chait, which we read earlier, Rabbi Danny Newman writes the line which always trips me up: for the mistake, Al-Chait, of thinking life is fair. It trips me up because I spend a lot of time and energy in imagining that life is or should be fair. I, like the Israelites, moan and groan about the hard things in life. I find things to blame, usually myself and sometimes other people. Perhaps we can see this most clearly on social media, where we vent and attack as we struggle with our own insecurities and the struggles we face. Yet life is not fair. Be that through the fault of others, political decisions and misdistribution of wealth, or of diseases like cancer, or natural disasters which can hit anywhere and anyone. We are part of nature, and nature is chaotic, and that is terrifying. We all have our own ways of coping with hard things. We might run away, withdraw and leave. We might decide to fight, putting our energy into the battle we see before us. We might have some unhelpful protection mechanisms we picked up as children. We might blame ourselves, look to substances, drugs, alcohol, gambling, relationships, shopping as ways to distract ourselves from the struggle. One of my teachers, Rabbi Sheila Shulman, Zichrona Livracha, used to sign off her letters with the Yiddish phrase, in gerangel, in struggle, recognizing that reality is full of suffering. Our Jewish history showcases how difficult life can be. We have stories of that time when things were so dark and so tough. Yet, as our texts always tell us, we survive, for we're strong. We can do hard things. We can't deny the pain or the difficulties or run away from them. We can't numb ourselves, for that never works. The pain and fear have to go somewhere. But we can tell ourselves compassionately, we can do hard things. And here is the liberation. Once we realise that life is full of struggle and will never be fair, we can turn into life and live fully. We can support each other, recognising that we only have this moment now. Our eyes are opened and we can see the beauty around us. We have empathy and compassion for others as we all try to muddle through. Here on Yom Kippur, the day of reckoning, we awaken to the reality of life, see our fragility and come out refreshed, renewed and ready to live. Being together, as we have done, we name the pain and the hard things we are going through. We recognise life is full of struggle and we know we're strong enough to come through it. We turn into community, into good deeds, towards each other, in gerangel, in struggle, in community. Ken you hear at son, may this be God's will. Amen.